Hello, everybody, and thank you all for joining us today. Super excited to have a very good crowd already showing up here right on time. We're going to give it a few minutes right now just to kind of, let a few others trickle in, and then I'll jump into some housekeeping and introducing myself and Kuba. So, just kind of to make this fun right now, we've already got about 60 people online. Would love to hear, just real quick on a scale of 1 to 5, what's your familiarity with Gravity Sketch? Drop that in the chat right there, and we can kind of take a look at that. And then we'll also ask you about spatial as well. So, nice. We've got some people. A year, 1.5, a 5. Nice. Max, a 5. An 8. 8, you're off the scale. Like that. That's something crazy. 7, y'all, 1 to 5 scales here. Y'all are all going way off scale here. I love the power user aspect, but like, I want to get up with all of y'all and see what y'all are building in Gravity Sketch if you're off the scale. 1.5, yeah, I feel you, Mark. I'm about a 1.5 as well. 4.5s, artists using since 2020. A 1, a 2, occasionally using for about 3 years, a 6. So it looks like we've got people all over the place. We've got some novice, some people who have spent some time in here, some people who are just blowing my scale out of the water and are some of the best Gravity Sketch users ever positively. I love that. Oh, we got a student ambassador on here. I love that. Really cool to see. I think Kuba, you actually have some relationship with our student ambassador program a little bit, right? You were doing something professor-wise with us before, a little bit, yeah.
We were connecting different academies here in Amsterdam, so we have educational deal, not ambassadors, but yeah, we are showing it to a lot of students.
Cool. So now, really quick with that, what do we have for spatial? Anybody? 1 to 5. What's your familiarity with spatial? Which is another very cool tool, which I will say did not even know about until I met Kuba. Oh, we've got a 4 here, a 2, so a 0, 4 years. So all right, we've got 0. We've got some pretty good people all over. Just found out 5, used it in classes. Super, super cool. Love to see all of this. We've got a pretty wide range of people here. All right, so, just for the sake of time, we've got a really good group in here so far. I'm sure we're going to have more people trickling in, but I'm going to go through the boring stuff at first. So let's just go ahead and get started. First of all, really excited to have you all. Thank you all so much for joining and spending your time with us. It's going to be a lot of fun. Love to see a lot of power users for Gravity Sketch and for Spatial in here, but also love to see some novice because, I think there's a lot that y'all are going to be able to learn from this either way. And there's certainly been a lot that I've learned just from working with Kuba to get this presentation together. So with that, first of all, my name is Tyler Crumpler. I'm on the marketing team here at Gravity Sketch, and I'm going to be your host today. So, kind of going through a few things. I'm going to guide the conversation with Kuba, ask some questions, but also we want this to be interactive. I'll be watching the chat the entire time. We will have time for Q&A at the end, but if we're talking about something or going through something and it prompts a question for y'all, just drop it in there. I'll do my best to start addressing it while we're in flow. Kuba and I don't really have any agenda here other than to show y'all a really cool experience that he's built and talk about how you can create some of these very immersive experiences in VR to showcase physical products. So, questions, serve them. But again, we'll have some time here at the very end where y'all will also have time, but don't hesitate to drop them in there. So with that, we'll also share the recording of this out within 28 to 48 hours of this, along with, some of the really cool links to the spatial world that Kuba has built so that y'all will have that as part of the email follow-up. And then final thing with that, if you're having any technical difficulties, drop them in the chat while we are, kind of presenting. I will do my best to help you out with those while presenting and in the flow, but some things might be above my head, but I will absolutely be there to help you out. And so with that, just want to kick things over to Kuba really quick to introduce himself, and then we'll drop into some content.
Yeah. Hi. Hi, Tyler. Hi, everyone. My name is Kuba Jekiel. I'm a person with a made-up title. I call myself a metaverse architect or an XR architect. All these terms are completely imaginary and pretty fresh. That's why I love them and that's why I use them. I do have background in traditional architecture. Worked in traditional architecture for years, but nowadays I mostly utilize it to design purely digital experiences, and um, the XR part is standing mostly for the use of VR, in that case virtual reality, and in particular Gravity Sketch for all the design part in all of my projects by now. So that's shortly about me. What I do is to work on either design, well, metaverse projects, or trying to introduce these topics, these tools to the students at different universities, Academy of Architecture here in Amsterdam, but also in Tilburg in the Netherlands. Also going beyond this to introduce, for example, film academy students to Gravity Sketch. So a spectrum of fields, mostly focusing on design, education, and research.
Yeah, and I don't want to let Kuba here undersell himself because I've been following him for a while. The dude knows all about this, and I was actually telling some of the design consultants internally at Gravity Sketch, like the world that he built within here is pretty amazing, even by our standards. So, like, I can't wait to get in here and show you all that. So, but before we do that, we're just gonna share a little bit a slide deck of just a few things here and kind of do just like a brief Q&A. So hopefully you all can see what I'm showing right now in terms of slide deck and all that good stuff. And so we're going to jump into that. It looks like y'all can. So, Kuba, kind of talk to us a little bit about what we're seeing right here on this slide before we go a little bit farther and I start asking you some questions, because this thing is really cool.
I thought it will be nice, so before we look into the build, to give this little a teaser that presents the project that I recently delivered, project for BMW Motorrad, standing for motorcycles, and what it was a virtual premiere of a product that they were launching, an electric motorbike, something completely new in their offer, and therefore they wanted to also use different new media that fit to this product more than their typical motorbikes. And so we used Spatial to host this experience. So what we see is a static image, but it's a live, fully interactive experience. We can call it Metaverse. I think Metaverse is a term that is loaded. I think this is also a term that is gonna change. So for now, we're using the term Metaverse, which for me and for many people stands for something, experience that is three-dimensional, that is persistent, and is multiplayer. So if we go there now, we can see each other, we can see what the other person is doing, we can interact with it, we can communicate with it. So this is the image. What we see is from Spatial, and this is the plan for today, that we kind of start with it and then also end there as well, and hopefully we can invite as many as many of you guys as we can, which is plenty, so you can all experience it, so that this interactivity also translate to you experiencing it and not just me talking about it.
Yeah, so it'll be really, really cool. And so, like, with that, we're going to kind of go through a lot of your workflow today, right, Kuba, where we're going to see, this is kind of like a still image of the screen or the finished product, like you said, but we're going to go in and seeing like how you actually built this world and create or collaborated with the BMW Motorrad team in Gravity Sketch. to build this world out, then all the way migrating it and hosting it over here into spatial, right? So as we start to go through this and take a look at, some of these other slides, like you can see right here even, what are we looking at right here, Kuba, in terms of, maybe some of the things that we've talked about here?
So what we are looking at here, and what we'll we'll go into this sort of visuals later with a live preview. But so this is the raw model. This is what I made in Gravity Sketch, and this is this was a constantly changing, developing model that I used to meet with clients, to meet with a friend who was just wanted to chat remotely instead of a video call. We would hang out there, so I could show him how am I doing, what I'm working with. So this is the raw model. And yeah, it's also the key of it is that it looks simple, so we can all run it on the web browser. But I guess we'll go into this later.
Yeah, we will here very shortly. And then, we kind of have just another split shot here of looking like where this went, right? Like what it was in Gravity Sketch as you designed it and how this ended up coming to life in spatial, which I just think is so cool. And so this one really gives me like what I want to ask you is almost like your first question, right? You talked about a lot in your career, kind of, how you started, where you came from, all of that. But like, how is what we're calling the metaverse here today, and however you want to look at it, VR, metaverse, because, lots of different ways we can slice this pie, like you said. But how has it changed how, you're working with a lot of these amazing brands that you have, like Samsung, IGN, BMW Motorrad, to really, communicate their physical designs in this metaverse virtual world?
So if I get your question right, no, if you could rephrase the question so I really answer the real one and not
Yeah.
just imagine my own question.
No, you're good. So kind of what I'm looking at here and like kind of what I was trying to get at is like, there is this new technology and it's changing all the time and it's changing how we do things. Brands are coming to you because they want to figure out how to showcase their work utilizing this cutting edge technology, right? So how has it really changed the way that over the years you've started working with these brands to help them showcase these things, right? Before we jump in and really get to what that
Okay,
workflow looks
no,
like, yeah, how has it
yeah.
changed over the years?
No, so the most exciting part for me, and that's why also I love it to constantly changing within every project. So literally the brief that we started with for this one was much smaller than what it ended up being, and because the clients come to you often with a rough idea and more excitement than expectations really, because first of all, the what's possible is changing. So imagine if it was designing cars, but what's the body can be made of constantly changes. The process of designing a car would be much more dynamic and surprising and yeah, unexpected. So this is how it goes here. And the brands come to you asking for maybe a metaverse experience. As I said, you define with them throughout the process what it means, but they also don't expect that you're actually going to also make it in VR. So they don't often expect even that it is, most people still experience metaverse on their web browsers, on their computers, on their phones. So it's more traditional game-like experience. The VR is a nice to have, but then we also say, but guys, we're not going to just keep VR at the last part, but we actually going to move the process into the VR and let you feel what the scale is, so I can talk less and show more, and they can understand without understanding what the architectural jargon means, what is space setback, all these things. We can communicate more brain to brain, and that's an amazing part of it.
Yeah, Kuba, one of the things you really hit on there that I just love, and I feel like, I think this is maybe now, I've been at Gravity Sketch for about 8 months. I think I've done about 6 of these interviews now, right? One of the things that I think has come up in almost every single one of those is just the way that this helps you communicate your ideas better, right? Like, instead of just like trying to talk to them about what this looks like, you can actually bring people in and show them. And so I think you just set us up for the perfect segue of, let's move into Gravity Sketch really quick and take a look at this world that you actually built and start to talk about that. And because I think that's going to be really fun. That and the spatial, like, slides are cool but kind of boring, like, let's be for real. So let's get into actual VR, and I will
Absolutely.
over here. Yeah, so what we are going to do here actually, and so this is going to be a little bit different than a lot of ways that people present in VR. So Gravity Sketch actually has a product called Collab. And so right now, I am in Collab with Kuba, and I am pinned to Kuba while he is in Gravity Sketch in VR in this virtual world that he's created. And so we're able to actually go into this amazing world that he's created, and I can watch him from my desktop, right? I can also get in VR. I've been in VR with him in this world together using Collab as well. One of the really cool things is it removes that have to having a headset to show clients and other people within your design process, how to do this, right? And so, it really removes some of those barriers right now that you see a lot of times of the headset piece. And so, really cool. So, I think just first of all, Kuba, we lost the screen there. So hold on one second. Let's pull it back up. Sorry about that.
I see also my quest is freaking out, but I guess you are not seeing this error here.
No, it just dropped off, but I am pulling it right back up right now. So, sorry about that, y'all. Give us 1 second. Cool.
Yep, you're back in, I believe.
I am back in, and I am back pinned to you now. So let me share my screen, and we should be good to go on this. Cool deal. Alrighty, sorry about that, y'all. So we are back in here now. So Kuba, let's kind of walk through this space here of what you've done here and talk a little bit about, maybe even just to start, like, if you look at this huge thing, you see BMW at the top. Would love to hear about like what your thoughts are here and what this is, right? I know what it is, but let's tell the audience kind of what your thoughts were here and how you got to this with your clients.
Yeah, so what we can see is this full-on experience we've built. It is formed into sort of a building, and I think when we look at it, I'll sneak peek. I'll try to first move my head very slowly so nobody gets dizzy, and also get it closer because I see that it feels further away on the screen that I can see it. So, from my experience working on these digital experiences, sure, you're using purely digital matter, so everything can float, everything can fly, but you really want to find a balance between language and elements that people understand from the physical world. Use them as your advantage as an architect, even the metaverse, even digital architect. Make people feel comfortable, feel the scale, use materials that they understand, that they can relate to, that give vibe, and then also add some impossible things. So our building is floating over Berlin. We didn't have to put it on the ground. We could make use of a beautiful view over imaginary futuristic Berlin. But at the same time, a lot of elements that you'll see throughout the space are very tactile and very recognizable from what a typical garage would be. And talking about the garage, the product that BMW was wanted to promote in this experience was a very urban-oriented yeah, it's an electric bike. It's meant for the city. And they showed me this one video that I felt I felt was very inspiring. How a bunch of teenagers play with this bike in a parking garage, and there are different drone shots of around this garage when it's flying through, etc. So these were my main inspirations I took into this design, to give people both a chance to feel they are running, they are riding through a parking garage, but also, yeah, feel like a drone flying through this and jumping from one impossible place to the other. So we're gonna also see it later in spatial, but that was the main idea for the structure, and then also playing a bit with how the logo of BMW being split into pieces. So here the colors and here the cross are not necessarily completely in your face, especially when you start the experience. We're gonna start it here later on, so we can also stand here for a second. So I'm gonna get myself in the 1:1 scale and stand next to this guy, so that when you start the experience and look in front of you, you have recognizable elements of the brand, but it's not necessarily just a massive logo, one-to-one. And these kind of elements we take inspiration from, but not but try to use it in a playful way. And yeah, we can allow ourselves to create elements that wouldn't be necessarily easy possible to do in the physical space, but here we can take the freedom of doing anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's super cool. And I think, one of the questions that just like really pops to me when we talk about building an environment like this, right? And here you go, you're pulling up some of these cool images, but just like it's almost like when you're working with a client like BMW or, whoever else you're working with, like where do you start with them on this process, right? To figure out like, like you said, the brief was super loose. They almost don't even know what they want. They're just like, I want a cool world in the metaverse to showcase this. So like, where do you really start with them? And what's that direction of collaboration like within your workflow to figure out how to make this amazing space that you did?
Yeah, it's a lot of just taking small, easy steps and really guiding the client through what it's gonna be. It's we're really together basically discovering a new ground here. So all the technical things we try to explain only the necessary bits, but other than this, use a lot of metaphors, like, okay, it's like in a video game. In the video game, you go like this and that, you can do this or that. And on the visual side, of course, things like Midjourney or DALL-E can be extremely helpful to convey the idea that, of course, as I mentioned, starts from understanding the clients, the background. Usually, for this product, we are building environment for already an existing design, not premiered yet, but they have a certain mood board already built around this product. They have some promo clips that we can use. So it's really about first understanding what kind of atmosphere they're looking for, and then trying to push it to inspire them, not just by showing something that is more realistic, image of people on the rooftop enjoying the skyline, but also what I was mentioning, slowly introducing this impossible elements, some cool lights, something where you don't know where the gravity is anymore. Really utilize the power of AI that can help us to, again, shorten the route between our imagination and the imagination of the client, to lose as little as we can in the translation. And you see it starts with a cloud loosely on a mirror board, for example, on the screen of the client. But then with Gravity Sketch, you can really start using it in the space. So also when communicating a project to the client, almost till the very end, we combine whatever we do in 3D and how we slowly organize this experience, this journey, this game, basically. We use the images that they already know, that they liked, in the context that they belong to make it as clear for them as possible. So when you see the final images from Spatial, it's really meant to be a blend of this AI aids and our 3D Gravity Sketch model.
Yeah, no, I think that makes a ton of sense. And one of the things that I think is really cool that you talked about here is like, it really just isn't one tool. You're talking about mirror boards, you're talking about using AI, you're talking about taking that into Gravity Sketch, you're talking about and then pulling that out into Spatial, right? So like, one thing that, we always like to talk about here at Gravity Sketch is it isn't just like there isn't just one piece to your workflow, right? And no tool is really meant to replace another part of your workflow. These things all work together to really give you these seamless environments, these seamless images that you're designing, these seamless products that you're designing, right? And everything kind of has its place within there, which I think, you're doing a really good job of utilizing here. But, maybe let's kind of walk through this space a little bit and you talk to us a little bit about, the process of how you built this and where it came from and how you collaborated with the clients and maybe even some of the tips and tricks you found as you were creating this.
Do you think it's a good idea now to deconstruct this space and start layer after layer coming back to the image that we can see now?
Yep, and that's exactly where I was going with it. I think that would be really cool.
Right.
And so what Kuba's done here while he's hiding all these layers is he's actually broken this entire thing out into just, gosh, I don't even know, probably 30 layers. You can see him turning them all off right here. And so this way you can actually see exactly how he built this environment, and we can talk a lot more about what that workflow looks like. So it's a really cool experience that we can go through here in Gravity Sketch before we move into what it looked like in Spatial. So looks like he's got all those hidden now. So kick it back to you to talk to us a little bit about that, Kuba.
Yeah, so if we really start from the beginning, as I said, okay, we start with this cloud of images. And it really starts with, okay, the inspiration, and then the rest happens around a person. It sounds well, fancy, but it really is for me like that. So back in the traditional physical architecture, I would be restrained with a lot of dimensions. There are regulations that say how high the ceiling should be, how thick the floor has to be, how wide the corridor. Here, it's all gone, right? It only has to work well and feel good. And it's for all the OCD freaks, it also can be 1 meter 26 centimeters and 7 millimeters, and nobody can hate you for that, because if it feels good, it's fine. Therefore, using this puppet, this human for scale, you see in many places, throughout the design, I was using it because you really build it around that. So when you start getting the first feeling of what the heights of the floors are gonna be, it really is mostly about how tall the space should be comparing to how tall the human is. So the first step in shaping what this space is also, well, first understanding what are we gonna do here. I'm gonna get to that later, but this first skeleton really happens by just feeling how high we want it to be. And together with the last floor, the complete skeleton or division of the space has been made. And we can come back to the very rooftop to go further with the elements. So we have the typical slabs. Usually I do them with, for example, revolve tool on flat surface and then thickening it. That allows you to nicely have this kind of cutouts very easily by using the revolve tool and rotating it, especially now with the update. I wish the update was before I started working on this project. Would make it much easier.
You and everybody
Which, well, I guess it's a good update if it means that now the work is better.
Trust me, that makes us happy to hear. So
yeah. No, and like what we're building here, of course, is architecture, our spaces, but it's really about this journey, because after all, it ends up being sort of a game. So you want to have a clear point of start and a journey. So all these elements that we're bringing here, so a canopy, of course, it was an important part that it frames the entrance and it doesn't feel completely empty, but people immediately see a certain guidance. This cross of BMW logo suddenly becomes like a target that supposedly shows you where you are supposed to go. But it's also the finale of the experience. So we start here where the guy is, and we're ending at the very top. We're getting a prize. There's a massive jacket spinning around the space. So they all have very, very pragmatic, functional reasons why they're there.
hey,
And
Kuba,
when we have...
We've got a few questions coming in. Can I stop you?
Oh, yeah,
so we can
please.
get through them? Yeah.
Absolutely.
So Luis says, awesome design. Was this design built completely using Gravity Sketch modeling, or was it in another software and then brought in and shared with the experience? This was Gravity Sketch, correct?
This is completely Gravity Sketch, and I have to say, some people will call me crazy, but I just want to perceive myself as persistent. I just decided that I'm gonna force myself and find out ways how to be able to do everything in Gravity Sketch. And that sometimes there's some things that in more typically architecture programs, some things would be faster to do there. But when I'm thinking about modeling something in Rhino or something else, then exporting it, bringing it here, it's too complex, it's not working, whatever. Just this process makes me sick. So I'd rather do everything here, sometimes struggle, but find a way how from software that is advertised often as automotive design, sneaker design first, how to make it a full-on architecture design program. And I have to keep mentioning that, it creates very optimized models. And therefore, I avoid a lot of hassle that typically architectural programs would give me. Short answer to this question is full-on Gravity Sketch.
No, and actually, I'm really glad you just brought that up, because one of the things you said was software, as we advertise ourselves often as footwear and automotive. That's not all we are, right? Like, as you can see from this, I mean, I had a call with a gentleman the other day who is using this in the medical profession to do medical training for, nurses and things like that. Also, someone who's using this in their biology class to draw out DNA and train their students, right? Like, while those are two big industries for Gravity Sketch, the possibilities are pretty endless, and you're doing a great job showing that right now. So another one, do you start at 1-to-1 scale, or are you bringing the mannequin in first, or a complete building and then scale it?
Always 1-to-1. I find it, I thought I stretched it enough, but I'm going to say it again. I bring a mannequin in scale 1-to-1, so I can literally scale myself always to 1-to-1 and just build in this scale. And why wouldn't I? I mean, now I can just jump next to the guy. I'm sitting, so my head is a bit lower than his, but we're in the same scale. We can check it out together. Can be also a real person, then it sounds less sad. But I can zoom out and work like it's a model, like it's a physical model. Architectural students will know what I'm talking about, and really feel like like it's a tiny model, but in principle it always stays in the right scale. There's also, therefore, also if I bring in external models, they match. No messing up with scale is my rule, and it's especially important for designing spaces because it gives you so much of control, jumping between the different scales. It can't get better than this.
And so with that, let's keep going through, and going through this actual process of what you built really quick, just for time's sake, so we make sure we have time to get into spatial as well. So keep the
Totally,
questions
yeah.
coming, everybody.
So a lot of the design is also making clear the navigation is good. So you see, creating this kind of arrows help people to find a clear way where the real juice of the experience is. Because of course we start here, but you can't see the bike. The bike you can only see if you take the leap of faith. So we wanted to create this kind of moment. There was a lot of discussion. Kuba wanted feel suicidal. So my job here was also to make it a cool jump, not a scary jump. I think it's much scarier in VR. Try it. It's much more intense than on the web browser. But the idea is that we really hop in here and then go through this tunnel. The tunnel that is consisting of typical, very garage-like beams, columns. The same goes to the rest of the body of the building. The flat surface like this will never feel as physical as with when we add some beams and beams and columns. And a lot of architectural students will tell me, oh, these beams don't make any sense. I don't care. They look great. This gives us the vibes. Fortunately, in this design, you don't have to worry that it's going to collapse construction-wise. It just has to hold digitally.
You're
So
trying
when
to
we
make it
jump
look cool, right? And where you could build something maybe structurally sound in here, you're just trying to make it look cool, and that's what matters for this, right?
And well, most of the guests are not per se construction engineers, so we're keeping this bottom line of what feels real, and that's an interesting game to play, and I like it a lot. And when we jump through this construction-wise believable tunnel, we're landing in the main space actually. So you can start recognizing the elements from the image from the start. So what we wanted is to create this kind of urban, more dark, more dirty, but still kind of modern, and maybe a bit more luxurious than a typical garage vibe, to highlight the stars of the experience. We see here some skate park elements. That was the original idea. They ended up being custom pieces. This custom pieces, instead of the skate park elements, is what you can see in the final experience. I'll try to shake my head less because I see on the screen that it might be annoying. So these two pieces were replaced with something else, something that was actually a link between the physical and digital experience. So the premiere of the bike was happening simultaneously in the Metaverse and live in Berlin at like a festival organized for this sake. And there on the stage were exactly the same pieces, not these ones, but newly designed pieces by an artist for this event. Were also used by skateboarders and the guy that was doing stunts on the bike. So this is what you can see on the first image we presented, and when you jump into the space. But these were our placeholders. I think if I use the images, so this was our like key visual that we're starting with, referring to at the very beginning, just to agree with the client what the vibe is supposed to be.
And so, Kuba,
But
with
yeah, you
that, did
see.
you actually bring your client in here and show them this in VR and like kind of get that agreement within here?
So this is the only silly limitation is that not everyone has a headset.
Yeah.
So in many cases, you have to use the tools like you're using right now, the Collab,
Yep.
to be able to show it. It depends on the client, really. Some of the projects worked great with a client having the headset and checking it out, some not. But yeah, it's sad enough. VR is still kind of a niche, especially outside of the creative industry. And sometimes these companies even have the headsets. They just are not aware of the power hidden in them.
Yeah.
So in that case, we were communicating a lot with videos or images, and only within the internal team, being able to walk through this, etc., in VR.
Nope, that makes sense. Yeah. I was just curious. So,
So yeah, when we're going further, I think we have to speed up. What's the time? Can I see that?
yeah.
Yeah, we should speed up.
Like,
So we are adding the slopes because it's a garage, and it became this actually track for the bike where we can race through the garage, so you don't have to run. You can actually use the bike to move quickly through the space. And the initial brief, was really focusing just on this ground floor. But we really wanted to expand on this to give people space to play around with the bike, but also to learn more about the process, so the design process. So if you guys go into the space, you can see a lot of sketches and early renders of the bike, more information throughout the space. So instead of stretching all this information through a website, we stretch it spatially through this garage, so you can maybe remember it also in a different way, because it's packed in the experience. So you can see that even the tiniest details, like the decals on the floor, oh, I moved, were placed also in Gravity Sketch. Sorry, handling the mic in front of my face and the controllers is not the typical setup. For the flexibility, I really didn't want to add stuff like the lines on the floor at the very end. I wanted the clients to feel pretty quickly what is the idea of mixing this racing traffic elements with this exhibition space. And one by one go from the vibe of the rooftop, main hall. I can look in here to the more event area where we have a stage. In the meantime, having a virtual bar. We even considered having some seats in it, but at the end we decided this is really pointless. Nobody's sitting in the virtual bar. So this became more like an information point. You can meet here a host that can help you with information about the experience and about the game that you can play there. You can use also references for plants in here. So if plants are an important part of design, you can also test how they will influence the space. I tried to even put them exactly in the right positions, but that didn't work. So this process is also full of tests, experiments, failures. But at the end, you end up with something that actually works. Here we have our event space, our stage, where I believe we'll end at the very end of this webinar. So remember, this was created here and was a step before you could grab a bike. So this is a spot where you can actually grab one of the bikes and take them on a ride. Woo! Punch the mic again. Take them on the ride. This just shows how much more expressive the process becomes when you can use your hands and not just a mouse when talking about a design. So details. We get the portals. You can use them to actually purchase the bikes. Adding all the walls in the space so it becomes useful. So on these walls throughout the body of the building, we place different, as I said, information about the bike, process sketches, but also this is where we hidden the treasure, let's say. So throughout the space, around these different walls, you can find BMW tokens. And if you collect all of them, I recommend trying to get them while riding a bike, because then jumping through a ramp like this is possible. You can't jump through this when you're just a pedestrian, but if you hop on a bike, you can do a proper jump through the tunnel. So
that's a little Easter egg there.
Well, so throughout the space there are tokens that lead you at the very top of the design, where you get the prize, an actual virtual outfit that was also designed especially for this space. More guiding elements. What was very important for me also to make this more special, more unique, not just a typical garage that but add these impossible elements. So I wanted to use this kind of wave that refers to long exposure shots of cars, then they leave this kind of marks. Pretty sure, also AI was helping me to convey this message, to explain what I'm actually talking about. So when you sprint through this space, you get this extra dynamic elements. I'm on time. Okay. When should we move from this to the next step, Tyler?
I was about to say, I think we should hop into spatial now and actually take a look at what this looks like. And that way we can start to take a bunch of these questions that we have coming through, because people are loving what you have to say here. And so I think it would be a good point.
I'm just going to show two more things before we jump off. For all the builders, Metaverse builders, what also is very helpful is that you can create colliders very quickly in Gravity Sketch. So these invisible walls that help people not to fall in the spaces you don't want them to fall. This was especially for the bike. You didn't want people to jump through this hole and hurt their avatars. And at the end, we put on facade on this. And it's a very simple facade, because it's really about the internal experience. So initially, as an architect, I was playing a lot with how sophisticated the facade can be, but it's really 99% that you see from the inside. Therefore, facade actually becomes really a secondary thing in a design. Usually that's the opposite in traditional architecture. But you're right. We should now jump into the space and make a full loop, utilizing another tool to communicate, which is spatial. So let me take this off.
Yep.
Excuse my VR hairdo now. It's always the issue.
Our CRO likes to call it design hair, is one of his favorite things to call it. So
it's much better than in the old Oculus. You had this strap in the middle that was splitting your hair in two. Oh yeah. Okay. You are gonna share your screen from spatial, right?
Yep. Let me pull that up right now, because it had logged me out during that time. So here we go.
In the meantime, Simone, you're asking how you can export a collider from Gravity. You just export geometry, and in Unity, you just make sure it's invisible, but it has its physical attributes. Okay, we're on the rooftop. I think we are muted, so that's great. So I'm gonna jump first.
And there's Kuba. And I'm gonna follow him down in there. Woo.
There we go. So here is our room. I think it's gonna be best if people explore it themselves. We have some activities. We can throw a ball. We can sit on a bike. We can listen to how the bike sounds. It's a bunch of activities. There's also music that we can control. But maybe it's best, considering time, if we head to the main stage.
Let's do it.
If you can follow me, Tyler.
Yeah.
So you remember the bar. Here's the host.
Yep. Hanging
Where's
out
the
there, ready to play balls, do some things with them.
host? The hosts are telling us what to do further in the experience and are showing off the outfit that we can win. So they have semi-passive role, and you see that you can get these tokens and play the game. So I placed here a little setup. I'm
There
gonna
we
hide
go.
the
Take a nice little seat right there.
yes, sir.
All right, and then I think with that, we can kind of just start rattling through these questions. Keep them coming, y'all, because there is a ton in here. I think one I just want to kick off with, the Kuba, in terms of moving this from, and what you can actually see here in the background, which I think is really cool, y'all, is you can actually see the webinar being broadcasted behind us as well while we're in spatial. So just kind of bring all this together.
Can you help me if I can reorganize the windows, or is it too complex now?
No, go for it. What do you?
But do you know if I can minimize the sharing screen thingy? It would be better if you have less of the inception. Well,
Yeah, not.
I would like us to be on the as main things and not the shared screen. But I managed it with Google Meets when I tried, but now, of course,
Yeah.
I'm panicking.
Okay,
So, let's ignore this.
Yep. So, okay, cool. All good. So, first things first out of that, Kuba. Like, how did you get this original world from Gravity Sketch over into spatial? Like, that had to have been a whole process. And then,
it is quite a process, but the good thing that it's not native to spatial, but it's a very universal process. So what you use for this kind of what's called WebGL experiences is Unity. One of the biggest game engines. There are super, allowing you to do amazing things, much more complex than what we see here, but also this. So you take this Gravity Sketch model and basically try to make a game out of it with Unity. And a great part, what I said, is that you can, even God forbid spatial decides to shut down and or change their ways, you still are left with a skill that can be used on many other platforms. I used the same workflow for Altspace a few years ago, Mona, now Spatial. There's also Ravel. So this is a kind of a typical way to do it.
yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So, with that, and I think this is a really good question when you start talking about these really immersive experiences like you create that are just so complex and so cool. But, like, do you have any experience actually overwhelming the client when you make an environment too crazy or unnatural? Do you think people need a lot of physical familiarity to not be disoriented?
I think they do. I think we started this metaverse dream thinking, oh, let's go the craziest the possible. That's possible, and it's the thing is that everyone have their own craziness, and if I just take you on you'll need a lot of explanation to understand it. You can think about it. You can think like this about any design. Like a cup could have so many different forms, but you kind of still go for the classic one because you know where the handle is, and that's a very basic example. But you kind of want people to understand it without you overly explaining, and that's one from just let's say moving around the space perspective, but also I think it's I think this is where my experience in architecture didn't go to waste. After all these years, it feels like understanding how we appreciate space, what makes us gasp in a museum, no matter if it's an old Gothic museum or a new modern one. There is something that makes you feel in a certain way. And this knowledge translates here a lot. And I think it's always cool if you add a weird element to it, but people do tend to feel, perceive the virtual experiences in a very similar way to the physical ones.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I mean, to be honest, like I had never done anything like spatial before meeting with you, right? And I mean, this is a pretty wild thing you're looking at here. It's super cool, but I was able to get into it very quickly and play around with it, like even before the first time I met with you, right? And so I think, but I mean, maybe I'm also a little bit biased because I work for a VR design company, and so I've got a little bit of experience with this type of
Yeah.
stuff too, right?
And
So
I also want to add that, maybe to be clear, there's also 1,000 ways to do it. And I think it's also, I'm finding for different projects different ratio of weirdness and something that people can relate to. And I think there's also absolutely a way to do it when it's doesn't use any physical elements. So, and it's equally great.
yeah, for sure. So, all right, another good one here. I've been using Gravity Sketch for designing more organic architectural shapes, but still importing them afterwards to other desktop softwares for more geometrical precise shapes. What hints would you give for designing and connecting such crisp shapes in Gravity Sketch?
Yeah, I think this is the blessing and the curse of Gravity Sketch. So it's crazy how easily you can design beautiful, organic, completely free-form shapes that either were very intentional because you grabbed something and you stretched it, and it's exactly from this point of your movement to this point, and you feel, oh, I have finally a full control. I don't need a shortcut. I don't need to move your mouse in this axis or this. No, you just grab it, you stretch it. But at the same time, you have a lot of surprising things when you start twisting something and it creates something you didn't expect. And this someone wants us to run around the building still. It's Adam. It's because you are the one that has to explore it.
Yeah.
That's why you still have a surprising part ahead of you.
We're sharing it with
Coming
y'all
back
here, and you'll get to play
Yeah.
around in this as much as you want. So,
coming back to the question, because I think it's super relevant one, and it's just comes with time, the control that you get over geometries. So sometimes you'll at one point you'll learn that actually something,
oh,
so what happened? That's actually also a cool effect. I'll keep maybe the spot. This is the spot that actually inspired me to design this, so it's relevant. Okay,
yeah.
to the point, Kuba. With time, you also learn that sometimes very complex shapes don't come with a lot of divisions, a lot of subdivisions. You learn how to design smart, so you actually don't have to redesign the thing that you made in Gravity Sketch. That you basically, it's a sketching tool. It's in the name. You can take a pen and do a rough sketch, and it's going to be an amazing shape. But then, how to make it into something real? And then you use the same pen and go very precisely, and it's going to take time. A kid doesn't draw a straight line for first 68 years of its life. It takes time, it takes precision, and then you'll learn that actually this craziness being simplified can can make it easier and can make it cleaner, but it's also, you have to find your own way. Like I found my way how to use it for virtual architecture, because also virtual architecture doesn't require as much millimeter sharp precision as the physical architecture. So if you're trying to insulate windows for your technical execution of the house kind of project, it might be challenging. But I don't think that the question was about this, so maybe I'll cut it here.
Yeah, but what I will say is I've seen someone who actually remodeled their kitchen in Gravity Sketch. Pretty crazy. So you can do it. But yeah, so right now we're at time. We've got time. Let's take one more question real quick and then we can wrap it up. The other thing I will say is hello@gravitysketch.com. It's if you got this via email where you got your invite, send your questions there. I will get them with Kuba, and we will do our best to make sure you get them answered because there's a ton in here we haven't gotten to, and so we appreciate that. But so, um, I guess for one more, let's see. How do you ensure smooth screen performance in Gravity Sketch when dealing with a high number of designed objects and numerous layers in big projects like these? This is a great one because I asked it to you, Kubo, when you showed me it the first time. So I think it's a good one to have answered. So,
And that's gonna be mm, well. So I always, almost always, just for my own comfort, work in the tether mode.
yep.
So with the Oculus Link, to have the buffer high up. But designing these experiences, like the models for these experiences, require very optimized models. And that I mentioned before, actually, Gravity Sketch is great in creating very optimized geometries, subdivision level that you can control. Okay, simplified, but still, who goes further than 2, 3, 4 subdivisions in Blender? So you can actually, from the very beginning, either work in a kind of low poly mode and only later turn on the subdivisions. But to be honest, I work mostly in the level of detail that is going to be the final level of detail, but it's just under control. So I really trying to make my life easier, but not creating super subdivided models that I'll have to then put hours into making them simpler to make them work in the metaverse, which of course is different if you're just gonna use it as a render and it's only meant to be an image, or it's gonna be an architectural model and you don't have these limitations. But that's where, yeah, my problems went away, because if you try to bring in the typical architectural model in Gravity Sketch, yeah, it's gonna go crazy, because architectural models, typical architectural models, don't care about the complexity of geometries. Gravity Sketch does. So actually, if you skip let's start in Rhino and then let's add some crazy things in Gravity Sketch and just build it from bottom, like from ground up in Gravity Sketch, you are in control and you can keep it. And actually, what's tying to what Tyler said, I always worked in the Erling mode, but he was in the standalone, and we were worried that maybe, just maybe, he'll have issues with the model, but he didn't, because it was an optimized model. And
Yep.
number of layers doesn't matter. You can put it on 1,000 layers. I used it for my own sanity, actually, so it made things easier. So I can also, I'm working on one part of the model. I can turn off the other part. So even if my computer is sweating because it's summer and I don't know, you can still control it very easily. So just not going wild from the beginning, trying to keep the layers clean, trying to keep geometry. So if you go in the wired mode, you can see that it's not blackout. Will make your life easier, and everything is possible. We made the craziest. Okay, I'm gonna plug things now. Metaverse Artisans is our super power group of Gravity Sketch users from all around the planet. We're using the collab to work with 5, 10, 15 people at once. Check out my Instagram, check out Metaverse Artisans Instagram. You can see videos where we build a whole city, futuristic city in Gravity Sketch, just with rules. We were creating these rules of don't go fully sub D from the beginning, but if you keep your rules strict, yeah, 15 people can build a whole city and it's gonna run because you're gonna keep it clean. So that was plug number one. The second plug, Radical Realities, is our new studio. Also, purely Gravity Sketch designers. We have rules. We can collaborate super easily. and we produce models that are from scratch, super optimized. Long answer is number two, but
Yeah. Well, and with that, I mean, Kuba, you and I have talked about doing some live sketching things that we do with those groups as well that I think could be really cool coming up here in the near future. So hopefully we can make that happen. But with that, I want to just go ahead and oh, Kuba's doing a little dance for us over there. Love that. So we're over time. This was amazing. Appreciate all the questions. Like I said, if there's something that really burning that we didn't get to, please send it to hello@gravitysketch.com. I'll make sure it gets over to Kuba. We will get you an answer. And then just with that, also, we're going to be sending out the recording here shortly, as well as a bunch of you have asked about experiencing this world in spatial now that it's actually created. So what you've seen Kuba and I in is actually like a broken off, like separate world. So like if you go into it normally, every time I've been into it before now, there's other people in there experiencing it. We're going to send you all that world. So y'all can go in, y'all can check it out, y'all can experience it yourself as well and really see this because it really is very cool. So with that, thank all of you. Kuba, thank you so much. Like this was so cool. People were very into it. I certainly enjoyed it and it was great working with you. We enjoyed having you. So
yeah, thank you guys so much. This is actually a webinar at the end of which there is a prize. So guys, head to Motorrad. You can check it out, and at the same time, if you finish the quest, you get an actual prize, original outfit, also designed in Gravity Sketch. The bike was redesigned in Gravity Sketch to make it work for this experience. So it's all Gravity Sketch, everything. Thank you so much. Hit me up, Kuba HYPERLIVING. Radical Reality is coming up. Boo, boo, boo.
cool.
Tyler, are you sure that's the right link you sent to the people?
I haven't shared it yet. So
Okay.
yeah, I was going to share it in the follow-up email, but I did just see somebody join this space. So
Yeah.
I don't know how they got that one, but
yeah, well, that's my fellow Gravity Sketch creator with whom we created Radical
nice.
Reality Studio. So
Hey,
that's safe. But yeah,
cool.
check out the official one.
All right, y'all. Thank you all so much. Have a good rest of your day, and thanks for joining us.